Hello and welcome to Gin with Gwyn. I'm Oliver Gwyn and this is where we talk about philosophy, marketing and data. This week we're talking about cookies and not the kind that you can eat because Google have decided in their infinite wisdom not to get rid of cookies, and it's a little bit controversial. Now, every time I have talked about cookies or written something about cookies, the week after there's some new news and whatever advice I've given is completely useless. I had a whole ebook last year that was implemented 3 days after it was published. Let's take it down for something new. So it's a very fast moving subject. I apologize in advance if this advice becomes useless. Cookies, what are they? Well, they were invented in 1994 by somebody called Lou Montulli. Sorry if I'm saying the name wrong there, Lou. And they were primarily invented because there was a problem where people had items in their shopping cart and they needed some way in which to remember them, which wasn't possible on HTTP protocol. And just to give you the context, the first website goes live in 1991. So you're 3 years into the internet and already we're starting to adapt it based on shopping preferences, which is kind of interesting to me because at the time, a lot of people did not have the internet in their homes, and it was certainly not a space that was respected and trusted, really. So the fact that cookies came along so early in the journey and that they were primarily instigated for e-commerce is very interesting to me. What do you use cookies for? So they are there to remember. They are a memory of what you have done. It allows you to track users across the pages of your website, what have they looked at, how long have they been there. It's used for personalization, so user preferences, language settings, that kind of thing. And of course, it's been used to target advertising. And that's where we get a little bit controversial because for many, many years, I would say only in the last 5 years, most people were unaware of how many different companies were tracking them online. A lot of third-party sort of aggregator sites, as I like to call them. I'm thinking of news sites, Entertainment Weekly review sites, all of these sort of media sites. They had cookies, and their business model really was to sell your journey and what you're interested in to other people, to accept cookies onto their site so that then when you went to other people's sites, they had that full journey. And most people were not aware of this, that their information was being sold to people that they had not opted in. And so GDPR laws come into place, privacy laws come into place to try and protect people. And did things get better? No, not at all. What has happened that we're all aware of, and I think I'll put somewhere on screen a screenshot, is that now you have to opt into every single website that you visit, which is very annoying. And they try and trick you into just accepting all. There's normally a long list of service providers, often hundreds of people, and you have to go through and de-click them. And then at the end, it will give you that option of accept all or save preferences, and you have to be careful not to put accept all, which I think is maybe not illegal, but it's definitely not in the spirit that the law was brought into. I think it's generally should be stopped. So Google decided that they were going to get rid of third-party cookies. They announced it in early 2020, so 4 years ago, that it would be phased out by 2022. And then because of the pandemic, their reasoning was they sort of extended that and delayed that for a few years. Meanwhile, everybody in marketing attended many hours of webinars to see what we would do in this cookieless world, how it would affect us, all of this kind of stuff. So they delayed that decision until last year, they said, and then it was delayed again. And now in 2024, they recently decided to re-implement cookies and cause absolute chaos. So the reasons that they have cited in retaining cookies was industry pushback, mostly the advertising industry, which relies heavily on it for targeting and measurement, pushback against it. There were some technical challenges. So one of the proposed alternatives to cookies was something called FLoC, which stood for Federated Learning of Cohorts, which was that instead of tracking people on an individual basis, you would then track anonymous cohorts of people, and they would be segmented in a useful way. So instead of finding that you had Oliver on your website, you would find out that you had male 30 demographic on the website, which is what most people were interested in anyway. It made a lot of sense to me on a practical point of view, but it was very difficult in terms of technical challenges, and there were some new fears around preserving user anonymity and that it wasn't actually any better. People argued that user experience would be negatively impacted and that it would make it harder to actually comply with regulation. There's also a lot of criticism of Google and other people who were trying to get rid of cookies, that the reason that they were doing this was nothing to do with privacy, but it was more to do with making you pay basically for that information. But the only way that you could get tracking was wider journeys was through advertising platforms. So there's a big tension between companies who want to track your journey to understand it, to personalize it, and customers who don't really want that done with people that they don't know and haven't agreed to. And so what should we do? Where is the problem? For me, I think that there's two different use cases here, and I think one is okay and one is not. So I think what's not okay in my eyes is that third-party websites that have hundreds of different companies, market research companies, all these kind of things tracking your movements, that you opt in and try and trick you into that. I don't think that's okay. I had a previous blog where I talked about how I don't believe there's a strategic advantage for companies to use those sites, and that they, in the world of AI, should set up their own third-party websites on a category level so that they can get that information in a more neutral way. I think there's a link somewhere on that. I think that's much better from a strategic point of view. I can understand that there's a use case for people tracking use on their own website. Not everybody wants to log in, and if you get rid of that altogether, the only way you can really do that is first-party data, so server-side tracking. But even that has a few limitations. iOS only changed the user ID for 7 days, I think it was. So there's a lot of problems there. Do I think that people really need to know who is looking on a website and what pages they look at? Yes, probably they need to do that. And if there's not an easy way of getting that data on aggregate and anonymous level, or tools like this, because cookies don't exist, I think that the easiest thing to do would be to create a clear distinction. So if I was king for a day, what would I do? I would invent a plugin that every single website in the world, by law, had to have. And it would be an opt-in plugin. And it would be very, very simple. There would be 3 options, which would be, this company can track my use on this site, partners can track my use on this site, give you a list, and it would just be one button to opt into all of them or none of them. Don't. If you're a company, you're probably thinking, most people are going to opt out. Well, most people are already opting out. 75% of people have ad block on that. So you're already not getting that data. All that happens is that, one, you're not having to trick them into, which I think has an impact on brand loyalty, has an impact on trust. I know that personally, I like to get my Sheffield United news from the Star, Sheffield Star. But their website is so full of advertising and so many partners track it that I no longer like to go on there. I purposely, a few years ago, said, you know what, I don't trust this website. It's really annoying to use. I'm not going to use them anymore. So I think it probably causes more harm than good when you're having to use a service and think, I have to go through and uncheck all these options in terms of who's tracking my usage. Second thing is, I think if you make it an obligation and you make it easy, people will be more likely to actually pick yes, because they know that they can trust that and that everybody has the same information and that they're not going to go down this route of legitimate interest and then send you a load of spam anyway. The second thing is, I do think that it's probably kosher that if you have a login, that part of your login is that you are allowed to track people and that they understand that you're just tracking their use on your site, your analytics, and not to sell to other people. That's difficult for the likes of Amazon, who probably want to say to people, hey, so many people were looking at these items, so maybe you should stock up on this. So this is what people spent on this item, and they give those to their partners. It's a difficult pill to swallow. But I think for internal analytics and not to sell on to other people, I think that's sort of fair use. In terms of Google fading this out for 4 years and then getting it back, I don't think that's a good thing. I think we were better off getting rid of it altogether. I don't like the idea that they were only doing that to sell to you on Google Ads and all of these other things. But moreover, I look to marketers and say, what's your real use case on this apart from tracking people on your own website? Is it to get these nice to know data about preferences and where people go to and what sites to advertise on? Well, you can probably get that information in other ways. You don't need to track every single person on every single site. So those are my top level thoughts on cookies, tracking, and privacy, and what I would do if I was sort of king for the day. Do you opt out when you visit a site? Do you find it annoying when you have to go through this process of deselecting a load of stuff? And what do you think is the future between tracking journeys and privacy? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks as ever for watching.